Well, I wish I was as good as Pods my first few years. Let me put it like that. So I guess in that sense, it doesn't. He's been a tremendous player for us on both ends of the court. Can shoot, pass, dribble, make really good decisions. He's a hell of a rebounder, defends really well. So, yeah, I wish I was that good. So I'm not sure what the complaints about him would be, but he's a tough, fiery competitor. We love having him. I mean, last night was a perfect example. That's a guy you want in Foxhole with you. He was tremendous.
Joining us right now on the River Islands guest line on Willard and Dibs is the GM of the Warriors, Mike Dunleavy. Hey, Mike, what's going on today?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Doing well. Back here in San Francisco after an exciting game last night in Houston. And, the beat goes on.
Well, can you tell us, and I guess this is just one moment in time, right? But that felt like something more than one victory. Can you give us a little bit of a window into what last night feels like it did for everybody in the building?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just a great display of the resolve our group has, right? I think it's been showcased over the last decade plus. And, we know this group, Steve, Draymond, Steph, those guys just have unbelievable resiliency. They set the tone, our culture, the whole thing. And so I think to be rewarded last night with a win, because frankly, the last few weeks, I mean, obviously we had a great win against Denver. We were very, very undermanned. But, we had some tough, like the Clippers, I thought we played pretty well. Just couldn't finish at the end. San Antonio before the All-Star break, a little bit of the same way. Like we played some really good games being undermanned, and you just can't figure out a way to find a positive result. And last night was the one we finally got through on, and I think guys felt great about it. We've had some great wins there in Houston last year in Game 7, Game 6 back in, I think that was 2019. Like there's been some pretty big Warrior wins there, so it felt like the good old days last night.
Yeah, and you mentioned resolve, and I'm also looking at, the roster, and it's Leons and Cryer and Williams and Santos and Post and Spencer. No disrespect, but when you have a roster of guys who are either second-round picks or undrafted, the expectations must go down, right?
Well, I don't know. Not when you have a locker room and you got Steph and Draymond in there. I mean, I mentioned Al Horford, too. Al's one of the greatest players in this league. True veteran. He's been around forever. He's won at the highest level. He kind of fits right into our fabric, right into our culture. He's another guy that just has pushed this group all year long, just to hang in there. We've had some tough breaks. Jimmy's injury, Steph going down, acquiring KP, and he hasn't been able to play that much yet. So these guys have hung in there at a level that's unbelievable. And the younger guys have sort of latched on. And, the guys you mentioned, I think we had 6 guys last night that have been on 2-way contracts for us. And so those guys all contributed, and guys like Moses Moody and Guy Santos and Brandin Podziemski, guys that just have kind of picked up the ways of this organization, and they're trying to push it through.
Mike, I think we definitely want to continue to sit in the moment a little bit, but also do some big picture stuff with the opportunity to talk to you. And let's talk about Kristaps Porzingis for a minute. Can you kind of, and I know you've done this already, but I'd love it if you would take our listeners through the thought process of that trade. And then also, like, has it kind of gone the way you thought it would? Like, what was the evaluation of the health situation, and maybe how has that evolved since then?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought process for us on the trade was the opportunity to get a player of his quality, who, when healthy, is pretty good, pretty unique, right? Like what he can do on the defensive end, what he can do on the offensive end. And then we had to calculate what we thought the ability and the chances of him, being healthy and playing a bunch for us. We felt pretty good about that. We still do. There's been a little bit of a hiccup. He played one game and he's been out, but I think his return is imminent. And so I think from a trade standpoint, to acquire that talent, obviously we're given, what we gave up is what we gave up. And, it's a young player that had, frankly asked to be moved. And so when you factor all that in, it's like we get a guy that, we think can help us now, possibly to bring him back in the future, complements our current group, and we're trading out a player that, didn't want to be here. That was kind of the thought process behind the trade. And so does it come with risk like all these things do? Absolutely. Last year we traded for Jimmy Butler, and I think a lot of people thought, what are you doing? This is a guy that hasn't played for Miami. He's holding everything up there. And so we took some risks there. But we believed in it, and it's worked out, and we kind of feel the same way about KP. So we'll see how it goes. These things can take some time, but we feel good about the contributions he can make now and moving forward.
And was part of the deal the flexibility and also the optionality? These are great GM buzzwords that you could create if KP is not actually going to be able to play a bunch. Was that part of the calculus for you guys?
I mean, a very little bit. We're always looking at that type of stuff, but frankly, with the Kuminga contract, it's very similar. So I wouldn't say that's a huge component of it. A huge component of it is just we're getting a player we're getting a really good basketball player, and for us to help us win now and continue pushing through this season, that was really important.
Hey, Mike, I'd love to do salary cap and aprons for dummies for a second.
Nice.
Because this is
it's not very fun. It is not very fun.
I know. And we don't I think
we don't get it.
Right. Well, we're all on a trade machine. And I know that there's all kinds of things that we don't understand. So this is a hypothetical, obviously, but you get to the offseason, you'll decide whether or not you want to keep Kristaps Porzingis, what it would cost, et cetera, et cetera. But the bird rights and everything like that, if he were to just move on, that salary that you sent out in Jonathan and Buddy, the $30 million, is it as simple that, you get to go shopping now with that $30 million, or does it not work that way?
Yeah, it doesn't really work exactly that way, given where the rest of our contract and spending are. If we had a ton of money, quote unquote, coming off the books, you could acquire cap space and then you could go spend elsewhere. That wouldn't be the case on this one particular salary slot. Does it provide for some other flexibility and some other things we can do that we'll plan and prepare for? Yeah, but it's not as simple as $30 million out and then go find $30 million in. It's a little bit trickier than that, but in layman's terms, that's sort of the best explanation I can give. So
then, Mike, let me ask you this, and I know that you guys have repeatedly talked about, hey, we made our big move. We got Jimmy Butler, but with all things that you know now, Kristaps may or may not be a part of this, but what would you tell fans in terms of how aggressively you can chase upgrades this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, we can be as aggressive as we want to be. I think we're going to be able to be in the mix in all the deals and the players you may want to acquire. That's been the case for the last few years. I mean, we've got all of our draft picks. We've got good assets. Our books are clean. So we have the means to do all that. We've just got to be disciplined about it. And it's something I kind of mentioned the last few years, that you got to be very careful about these things. Everybody wants you to go out and make a big splash move, and you go back and look and analyze what teams have done over the last decade or so. You got to be very careful. There's some teams that have put themselves in a tough situation by kind of mortgaging the future. And what we've been able to do is improve the team by using very little draft capital, whether it's the deal to get Andre Iguodala's contract moved to eventually acquire Andrew Wiggins and get a championship in 22, or last year using one first-round pick to get a player like Jimmy Butler. Those are kind of the moneymaker deals that you want to be in the business for right now, especially with where we're at, in our time zone, time frame. So we'll look at everything. We do look at everything, and we've been really close on some stuff. But ultimately, you got to be disciplined and do the right thing, and I think we'll continue to go down that path.
And part of the discipline will be this offseason where you could extend Steph into the future. Have you guys talked about what he might want to do and how long he might want to be here and what that number might be?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly envisioned Steph finishing his career here, no doubt about that. I'd say on all this stuff kind of coming this summer, it's in the back of our mind, but it's not top of mind. Right now, we're focused on this 20-game stretch. How do we get into the playoffs? How do we get Steph back playing this season? Those are the type of conversations we're having. Really hard to get too far ahead of it into summer and who's making what. We'll be prepared, but right now those aren't really the discussions we're having.
Can you give people an idea of what conversations are like between you and Steph? Because this constantly comes up around here where I think all star players in the NBA, we assume that they are the assistant GM. Everything needs to be run by them. And at a player who's about to be 38 years old, the assumption is that he would talk to you a lot about the plan over whatever the remainder of his career is going to be. Is it actually like that? How would you describe that?
I'd say it's more keeping him in the loop. I mean, Steph is just not the type to come up to my office every day and say, what's the plan? Where are we going? It's just not who he is. He's so focused on our team and his own game and getting better every day and keeping this thing going that he just doesn't operate that way. We've got a great rapport, good relationship. I share a lot of stuff with him, but honestly, he doesn't want to be bothered with that stuff constantly. So when the time's right, we're always talking, we're figuring things out. I've got a great sense of kind of where he's at, and always have a good sense of the pulse of the team from talking to him. But it is not a constant day in, day out. Hey, what are we doing here? And that's just not healthy, and that's honestly not how Steph operates.
Is that how Draymond operates? And I don't want to get into whether or not that he was dangled or offered, but it seems to us out here that Draymond is much more interested in that than just about anybody.
I think he's interested in it just from a salary cap, team building type of standpoint, like his just interest in the game. But obviously you always want to know kind of what's going on with you and your future. But both those guys, it really keep them in the loop. I haven't had a player so far that's really like that interested and banging down the door and what's going on and can we do this and sending me, I don't know what they do, maybe send you tweets of is this deal real? Should we do like those guys just don't do that. They're incredibly focused on their job. They've done an amazing job, and that's why they, have lasted so long. They worry about the things they can control, and they focus on the game and let me focus on my job.
Mike Dunleavy Jr., the GM of the Warriors, is with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. All right, Mike, I always chuckle a little bit on the inside when I hear people say everything for Steph, cannot let Steph go. And then at the same time, they're like, man, the Warriors have let themselves get really old. And maybe they shouldn't have done that. What is your response to the idea that the Warriors are too old?
Well, yeah, I think compared to being young, you'd much rather have young. But when you're aging and you're getting older, but you're still really good, like you just can't bail on that. And Steph and Draymond are two of the key stakeholders in it, and they performed at a level. Draymond just turned 36. What he's doing defensively still is incredible. Obviously, Steph's performances speak for themselves. So those guys have just extended this thing by their own play, and that's kind of what we're rolling with. And so, yeah, we'd much rather be 21 years old with this 10-year window coming up. But, that's not – you can't just snap your fingers and have that, especially when you have two Hall of Famers like Steph and Dre who still have it. And we've gone all in with them in terms of spending, building a team around them, which is a major commitment, and then using, the appropriate assets to keep getting better. So I'm kind of fine with how things have gone. This is the way you should do it. And then there'll be a time where you kind of do look to get younger. But for now, we feel like we're following the path and we're keeping the music playing, and that's the right thing to do.
And with that in mind, are you then more willing to part with next year's or this year's rather draft pick in terms of maybe adding a player as opposed to, picks that are 2, 4, 6 years down the road?
Yeah, sure. I think as the way the league values it, yeah. Our draft picks way further out when they see a future without Steph and Draymond. Those picks are probably more valuable. So on our end, that's just kind of the sliding scale of what things will cost and what we'll have to give up. So we're willing to do whatever it takes, but if we're going to put that stuff out there, it's got to be well worth it.
Mike, in looking at the way things all sort of developed here at the end, at the trade deadline, and I'm mindful that you just said that, the player, Jonathan Kuminga, had requested a trade. He did not want to be here. But let's look at the entire sort of 5 years. You weren't always the GM, but you've been a part of this. Do you think organizationally you guys have any regrets with the way this all went down?
I don't really want to get too into it. I think the thing I would say is just with young players and player development and all that stuff, you want to put your best foot forward. I think we did that. And the key in all this I've learned is you have to have buy-in from the player and you have to have buy-in from the organization. There's buy-in in both ends. And that wasn't fully met if I'm looking back on it. And that's on both sides, right? You go down the road of who's to blame, who's not. These things don't always work out, though. This isn't the first draft pick the Warriors have made or the league has made where it just hasn't worked out and guys move on and do better in different situations. And that's just the NBA. I frankly experienced it myself. So that's the way it goes. We're moving on. He's moving on. It's all good. And, we feel good about the young players we have, the way they're growing and all that. And we'll continue down that path.
Interesting you brought up your own career because we were talking yesterday about Brandin Podziemski and how fans seem to be more down on him than they should be. And we thought about you, Mike, and I've been around long enough, and so has my partner, like remembering when you were the number 3 pick and fans were more down on you than they probably should have been. When you look at Pods, does it remind you a little bit of yourself in terms of the echo chamber and the criticism?
Well, I wish I was as good as Pods my first few years. Let me put it like that. So I guess in that sense, it doesn't. He's been a tremendous player for us on both ends of the court. Can shoot, pass, dribble, make really good decisions. He's a hell of a rebounder, defends really well. So, yeah, I wish I was that good. So I'm not sure what the complaints about him would be, but he's a tough, fiery competitor. We love having him. I mean, last night was a perfect example. That's a guy you want in Foxhole with you. He was tremendous, and we'll continue to work with him and allow him to grow. But we're really happy with him as a player, and thankful to be able to draft him at 19 a few years ago, and he's grown real nicely. And no, I guess the parallels probably aren't that great because I wasn't good enough at that point in my career. It took me a little bit of time to become a good player, and Brandon's been good from the get-go.
Mike, Steve was on a couple of days ago talking about the entire organizational developmental process and that some adjustments maybe were made a few years ago. And to build off your answer there about Pods and also let's look at Moses Moody and Guy Santos, who you guys just signed to an extension. How are you guys feeling about your young player developmental process right now?
Yeah, we did look at some stuff and evaluate it, I think, in a really good way a few years ago. Of course, when you're rolling through the finals every year, 6 NBA finals, you're playing late into June, and then a week later you have summer league. Like, they're just player development gets put on the wayside because you got all these good veteran players. You pick late, in the draft every year. And then all of a sudden you realize, shoot, we need these young players to grow and play and be good, not only because of your future, but also because the other veteran players are making a lot of money. And so for the salary cap stuff to work and all, you need to have good, cheap labor. And so we revamped the process. I feel really good about it. A lot of that is day in and day out work, but a lot of it is the way we use Santa Cruz as a proving ground for our young players. I talked about before, we had 6 guys that are on 2-way contracts playing last night at one point or another in our organization. So it's a full remodel on the development and the drafting process and all that. And for the large part, I think it's gone quite well. We feel good about it. We feel good about the trajectory these guys are on.
So how do you bridge that between now and maybe the end of next year where you've got, maybe a drafted player and more young guys? How do you still try to maximize the Steph Curry window while also, nurturing and developing Will and Guy and Quentin and the rest?
Yeah, I think you just keep making good, sound, solid decisions, whether that's in free agency, that's a draft, that's trades. Every decision you make is important, whether it's the back of the roster or some big major move. We see all those as really, really important. A guy like Guy Santos, who's picked in the 50s, what he's doing and contributing to our team right now, who would have guessed that last year, much less 3 years ago? So I think the way we look at it is just good, sound, solid decisions. Keep hitting singles, doubles, mix in a home run or two, and you're going to be good for a long time. And that's sort of the thought process we're taking.
Speaking of young players, Lil Birdie told me that maybe you're going to see one play tonight. Now, he may not play basketball, but he's a pretty good young player. Is this true or false, Mike?
I mean, I'm going to see a great young player tonight down in San Jose, and he plays on ice.
Oh,
and he happens to be related to somebody I work very close with. And taking my kids down there, we're really excited. Obviously, we got caught up in it a few weeks ago with the Olympics. That was so fun to watch, and they've got a little bit of hockey fever right now, so we can go check it out.
Mike, we were just there on Tuesday night for that 7-5 win over Montreal. He scored. He had 37,000 assists.
At least.
Mike, he's unbelievable. He's incredible.
No, he's incredible. He's I don't want to get ahead of it too soon, but you think what we've had with Steph Curry here over the last 16 years, whatever it's been, this guy's got a chance to be in the same light for the Bay Area. So, let's keep our fingers crossed and, everybody stay healthy and the whole thing. But Max, he's going to be one of the greats of the game for a long time to come.
Mike, have fun tonight. Thank you so much for the time, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
All right, definitely. Mike Dunleavy Jr., the GM of the Warriors.